All right, we're live. I gotta turn the music just a hair down, I think.
I'll also check the audio too.
That's where everyone said they liked it last time. But
That's a pretty good level.
okay. But hey, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bella Gamer, and I'm joined by my co-host, Glue Boy.
Hello.
And tabletop's been bumping lately. There's just been a lot, and I'm very excited for some of the stuff we're gonna be talking today. But as always, we have our chat before, while everyone's hopping in to the stream here. So, what have you been up to, Alex?
Well, I've been up to two things, other than just I'm back making YouTube content. Glorious day. I've returned. But I've done two bits because two very big RPGs are getting updated like right fucking next to each other. So the one that's been a little lesser is Baldur's Gate 3 patch 3 is coming out tomorrow. It's gonna come out today, but they delayed it due to like some issues with how big the patch was apparently. Real big updates coming, and I decided to start a well, I'm also still waiting for just chapter 3 to function. That's still my problem of making me want to play Baldur's Gate, of invest all this time and then I reach the main area of Baldur's Gate and the game doesn't work, cutscenes just fuck up and all of that. So that's what I've been waiting for. But I started a Dark Urge campaign, and a modded Dark Urge campaign where I modded in some fun little like cosmetic stuff, and largely got my own method of using Q's leveling system for feats and ability score increases, which has been a lot better.
And Ag Silver, JRPGs are Japanese RPGs.
Yeah.
And very much are the style of like the first few Final Fantasy games, for instance. Because I feel like some of the more later ones kind of break away from the JRPG feel, especially
100%.
like 15 or not. Well, yeah, 15 and
16. 15 and 16. 13 also is a turn-based thing, but it doesn't really even. I don't know. It's weird. And then 13 is just also its own bag of worms because I don't like that series. I know, uncommon opinion. 13 sucks, but and then like the 7 remakes, which are now just action games.
Yeah.
With skills, but like that specific style, I really fuck with as someone whose favorite Final Fantasy games is 6 and 4. Those games are very good.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know what my favorite Final Fantasy is. I guess 14, because I have probably 2,000 hours in 14.
I mean, fair. I really like 6 and 4's story. I think 6 has one of the best stories they've written, personally, and also the art style is really nice in 6. I really like the design for everything.
What makes them function? It's literally the turn based. You have all your allies and you pick your actions, because that was a style specific to Japanese made RPGs.
Yeah, it's the Dragon Quest Final Fantasy, like that specific era and style that has then been broken down on, which I'm now curious how broad the genre lens is, because like, could you say that Xenoblade is a JRPG? Because it is a Japanese
it's a hybrid
RPG. It is a hybrid. It's an interesting just mechanic, like battle mechanic system anyways. It's really fucking weird.
I would say it's just it's a mix between the turn-based and live action, combat.
It is like a happy medium of it, yeah. uh, yeah, it's one of those genres that there's a lot that breaks it down when a lot of it is it a turn-based RPG that was made in Japan? It's a JRPG. But yeah,
Pretty
that's
much, yeah.
while waiting for patch 3, I did the Dark Urge start, and I gotta say, Dark Urge pretty fucking cool. Having a lot of fun with it, playing a Dark Urge barbarian who trying to go for like the violence as the first answer, and then seeing how I want to take the character as the choices are given to me. And very early on leaning into a lot of it like more, and then seeing how the later parts of the story are progressed. And then other than that, Cyberpunk's update just dropped today, and for all of you who have been on the fence waiting for a Cyberpunk update, it's like to actually play it. This Cyberpunk 2.0 is a fucking good game. Finally, they finished it after 3 years. The game is done.
Yeah, has it only been 3 years? I could have sworn
It's been
longer
like,
than
I don't
that.
actually remember. It might just be 2.
I would say it's
Oh.
been longer. I don't know. Let's see.
Uh,
Cyberpunk.
oh yeah, no, December 9th, 2020.
So yeah, it's only been almost 3 years at this
Almost
point.
3 years. Cyberpunk is really fun. I'm really enjoying it. There are a lot of really cool additions that I appreciate. Like one of my favorites that I discovered is armor is no longer tied to your clothing, so you can just dress to look cool,
That's actually kind of nice.
which is very nice. And other random bits is like they actually added car combat, and depending on which skill you're upgrading gives you access to different moves for car fighting. Like if you're going reflex, you can jump on top of your car and like do cool exits or like hijack kind of things from what it reads. If you go like hacking, you can get a bunch of quick hacks for cars, like forcing their brakes to activate or just to fucking explode.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. They added a bunch of random stuff, and the builds actually look interesting because the skill trees have depth to them, which is fantastic. Because I really hated Cyberpunk leveling before, where it was just like 5% more damage with handgun, and then now it's like, okay, here's the handgun like skill tree going up to like really playing a gunslinger type thing. Here's all of these extra builds that you can like work on and really fine tune with like a key big like impactful skill, and then all around them like clustered are tiny little add-ons that are just kind of nice and fun. So it is actually a good RPG now, and I'm enjoying myself with the gameplay a lot more because it feels better. Like every aspect of it feels a lot better to play.
Yeah, I might actually need to check it out then, because I don't know. I'm always a progress junkie in any game I play. I need something to like build towards to really enjoy the experience. And I never got hooked on Cyberpunk, and that's probably because like a lot of the upgrading just didn't feel super impactful.
It felt really worthless. It was kind of just leveling based on what weapons you were using.
Mm-hmm.
This one is like if you're going reflex, you fucking feel it because it's like, okay, here's a bunch of skills that change what actions you can do while sprinting and how they work. Like you're now able to like hit fire while full sprinting with no like energy cost or something. Increasing your just base movement and vaulting speed.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out and see.
I'm going a like stealthy netrunner style thing with a lot of quick hacks, so I'm going down the hacking tree too, and it seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to do a netrunner. I kind of just want to do one of the coolest ideas of Cyberpunk is just like a netrunner who's just a badass because they have complete control of the technology around them. And I kind of want to make like a suit style netrunner character who just walks into a building while everyone's going blind or their heads are exploding or something, you know?
Yeah, like great idea too, because one of the skills I did see is for like one of the top skills is like overheat or over like that big like shock one, your base damage one.
Mm-hmm.
When you get the key skill for it, because also how it works is the more you level the stat, the more skills you get access to from each like skill tree. So the top
Mm-hmm.
one being the legend tier, which is I think where you've like max or near maxed out the stat. One of the top skills for hacker is whenever you use that ability, it has a 50% chance to spread to everyone around him, like all enemies
That's
nearby.
pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's a 50% chance I think for each enemy that's nearby.
We'll see if I summon James with this next statement I'm about to make, but it's funny, you were talking about like the impact of like leveling or whatever, and I was because last week I did my review on the Gallows Spire Pathfinder game.
Oh yeah, I saw the video dropped. I was gonna watch it, but then I forgot.
Shame on
Got
you.
preoccupied.
It's okay. It was a lot longer video than I think I was intending to.
I was also just because I wanted to see the game in play, because I also, from what you described, do agree.
It's anyway. It's what it kind of boils down to is I think the game is fine. I think it's like a 6, 7 out of 10 for the Vampire Survivor style game. I just, the problem is there's so many games in its field that are already doing really, really good that it would be kind of hard to justify, honestly. A really good example is another game in the same genre called 20 Minutes Till Dawn.
Oh yeah, that game's pretty fun.
It's a really fun game, right? And the thing is that every time you make a choice in 20 Minutes Till Dawn, it's very impactful. Like your bullets will noticeably change size and increase in damage. When you run out of your clip, something will happen. Your summons will do more damage. It's all super duper impactful. And compared to Gallows Spire feels slow. It's meant to feel slow though because it's a lot longer of a run. And like a whole run of Gallows Spire takes, I don't know, probably in the realm of like 40 minutes to an hour, give or take.
Yeah.
And so your character is supposed to scale up over that time. I finally beat the final boss on the easy difficulty or the beginner difficulty with the wizard. I did shortly after I made the video, actually. And there are some significant changes that you can see. Like, you have to take certain abilities, I think, is the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, if you're a wizard, you need to take expanded area because it makes your areas are kind of like, okay, go to like screen spanning, you know.
That is really important for any of those style of games, is having those AoEs be bigger. And especially if you have a class that's entire thing is AoEs.
So, it's something that I feel like if they can just tweak it a little bit, I would prefer leveling slower, because that game, you level also super fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I would prefer if the leveling process was slower for more impactful increases than, you know, than what its current rate is. Its current rate, I think, can still hook people by just you're constantly leveling, so you're constantly increasing things. And there's like a lot of UI things that need to be fixed. Like when you max out a skill, there's no indicator anywhere that you've maxed out a skill. You just stop getting pickups for that skill.
Huh.
They are slowing down the leveling, yeah.
Makes sense.
There's just a lot of things where I feel like Gallows Spire is really close to being a lot more interesting. There needs to be another step, you know. And it's kind of like what you said, like impactful level ups, or you're not just adding damage. It's like, yeah, in 20 Minutes Till Dawn, it's not just adding damage. Your damage is like even the skills that are purely like numeric in a sense are like, oh, you reload this much faster. You reload like 20% faster rather than like 2% faster over the course of like 100 upgrades. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they could do there's a lot more that can be done, but I think Gallowspire is fine. It's just when you're in a genre with other Survivor games, especially Vampire Survivor, it's you need more, you know. So, or you need to do something super different. And they have this ally mechanic where you have this ally following you and it does nothing. It gives you someone to throw in the way of damage sometimes.
That's something. Yeah, when you compare it to like, yeah, with 20 minutes till dawn or Vampire Survivor, of having like, yeah, when you get that high level, you get an upgrade that changes it completely and for the better. And it's the thing where it's something I'm very fine tuned on. Like, I'm very keyed into the idea of it. Like, I cannot fucking stand pure numerical leveling in any way. I need horizontal leveling and a healthy amount of it because I get so fucking bored if my kit stays the exact same the entire game, but oh boy, the numbers are bigger. That is like my immediate like, ugh, hate that. Because it's the method I always talk about when it comes to like 5th edition. If anyone is actually out here trying to play 5th edition D&D, it will do you good to just adopt the system where you get your normal ability score increases, and then at a 2, 6, 10, 14, so on, you get a free feat pick. Cause not a feat pick, but you can choose a feat, you know? Because it adds in that horizontal leveling, and all it does is give your players more shit that they can do in the game. Because D&D doesn't give you a lot.
Yeah, Pathfinder hits it so nice.
Yes.
Pathfinder does both pretty well.
I like how Pathfinder does it a lot, which is one of the reasons I really, really like the game. Because it's like, yeah, I get so much extra shit I can do each level. I get something interesting every time I level up. Like now I can fucking plane shift. I got that spell.
Well, remember, if it's uncommon, you gotta find it.
Can I?
No. You gotta find it.
That's uncool.
You're going to Absalom. You're going to be able to find it in Absalom.
It's fucked up. You know that I don't have a good track record with Absalom magic people.
You know?
Because we determined last session that that's where Slug's character's from. So the
that
college
just sounds like story, my friend.
Yeah. So the college William stole from that he was working for is an Absalom. So he'll have to find a method in.
Sounds fun.
It does sound fun.
But gotta watch those rarity tags.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and I think now's a great time to start talking about Fabula Ultima, and as well, kind of like an additional aside, there is coming out next year, May next year, is the Final Fantasy TTRPG for Final Fantasy 14, which I've been waiting for a super long time for a good Final Fantasy based TTRPG, because there's a few that kind of like hover around, but they always just don't match up, you know? Because while they're Final Fantasy, and that's interesting, usually mechanically, they're not anything special as TTRPGs, which, you know, I'm not the kind of person who just enjoys a thing because it's the same theme as something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Final Fantasy 14, I don't know if it's a setting I would particularly like all that more. I would prefer something more like a Final Fantasy 7 setting as far as... Or 15 is my favorite.
Popped off. They popped off with like 7 setting. I'm not even the biggest Final Fantasy 7 fanboy. but like it's just Midgar is so cool, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
makes it hard. Or you're just like, oh, this is so fun. And like 15, I think is all right. The world does fit really well for a tabletop like game because the world leaves to a lot of very open, fun exploration, which I think could translate immensely well to like a tabletop RPG.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I thought 15's world was really good.
I
There's
think
some
the
things that
world is
were
cool.
kind of silly as far
The
as like
game is what I have the problem with because I just think the
sure, but
game
that's not what we're
overall is just
talking
kind of
about
meh.
right now.
Yeah,
I also like the game personally, but
yeah,
setting wise, I thought it was a lot of fun. The only thing
yeah.
that didn't make sense was the like beach resort place because it has no defenses or
That's
walls or anything.
true. Maybe
Uh,
they just don't understand the dock. They're like, what the fuck is this little wooden thing? And they just get bored halfway through, so they turn around and go somewhere else.
I
Because like
don't
maybe
know.
those big demons can only spawn on roads, like roads, because
You
they're made
know,
out of concrete.
the biggest sad part is back when 15, before it was announced or before it was fully released, when they had the demo, you play in the city Nocturne, and like some guys are summoned, and it's daytime in Nocturne or whatever,
Hmm.
and it was really cool because Nocturne's like a massive city. And like I
True.
really love modern aesthetic mixed with fantasy. I think that's why I really like not Hidden World. Hidden World's very different. I like modern and fantasy kind of intermixed. A lot of Final Fantasy games do it really really well. And but in 15, the actual game, Nocturne's destroyed, and so you're just running around this kind of desolate cityscape with a bunch of monsters spawning in, and it's just not cool. Not as cool as like if the city was actually like functioning, and you might have some like you have people running. Like it'd be really cool if you could go to a point where the city is like normal and everyone's walking around and then monsters jump out. 7 kind of does that a little bit, and I think it's really cool in the 7 remake anyway, when that happens. And some of the scenes in 7 where they're like doing the motorcycle duel is really really cool. So I don't
I
know.
gotta play the remake because
The
I've
remakes are really really good.
they seem fun. I enjoy 7. Like it's a pretty good time, and I'm picturing the old like models, like those old elements, like the motorcycle fight in the original game. And I'm like, yeah, you could soup that up a lot. There's a lot of situations in that game where like the idea of this is so cool. I wonder what it would look like updated.
So now we've reached Fabula Ultima, kind of. Fabula Ultima is whatever setting you want it to be, uh, because it doesn't come with a core setting. The idea is it's based on some kind of JRPG game, you know, whether it's like the oh, what's that really good series that came out recently? I played one of the games recently too. One second. Library.
I'm curious if I'll know this.
It's a really good game. I played the second one, not the first one. Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler
Oh
and
yeah,
Octopath Traveler 2
I need to play the
are,
sequel.
I will say, those games I think are like some of the pinnacle of the JRPG style in fashion. Because it mixes a lot of the feeling of JRPG with a very, very good game system. And
That's
how
what
you're
I keep hearing.
it's 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 probably the best JRPG out there, like
Ooh,
mechanically speaking,
it's high praise.
in my opinion. In my opinion,
Yeah, I think
but it's a
it's
really
the
really
the
good game.
I think it's the fun thing. It's the part that I really fuck with when it comes to turn-based games and like JRPG specifically is each like series has their own core like mechanic that every time they get a new game it gets fine-tuned. Which is also kind of the aspect of Fabio Ultima that I really like because it I only like put this in perspective when Devin mentioned in like the general chat a bit ago, where he was talking about like a method to just visualize combat instead of, because battle maps aren't really a fucking thing for this game. Where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's why I fuck with it, because it's pretty much just it. You can picture your characters lined up like in like the old Final Fantasy games, like doing their animations while you like lock in abilities, and then everything
Mm-hmm.
plays out. Like it's literally just that, which immediately is like, okay, that is why I really enjoy the combat. I understand.
Yeah, and like, and I want to say, bro, word. I've seen your stuff. I haven't mentioned because I didn't play FFT Evilise at all, so I didn't have anything to respond. But I do see you there. We haven't mentioned any of your comments so far, so. But yeah, the reason why I didn't kind of go with the idea with it was mostly just because it's a game that is designed to like be freeform roleplay, you know? And while the turn-based thing is like a good aesthetic in my opinion as well, it's not like a good it's not a good like roleplay thing, because the players are not like motivated to interact with the environment or anything like that. And when you put that in the context of like how the game is actually run, then players just think that, oh, all we do is just side up next to each other and fight these monsters, and that's not what it's supposed to be, right?
No.
And that's technically excuse me, my voice has been cracking a lot lately. It's not technically what even the JRPG represents combat as. It's
No.
just an analog for it, you know, where it's like these characters are expected to be running around doing things in the combat, but you know, it just assumes that everyone can get to each other in the course of the combat. Maybe some enemies, like in Fabula Ultima, a flying enemy can't be attacked by any character other than characters using ranged attacks or magic. So that is a thing where, like, if you're using a ranged weapon or a melee weapon, makes the difference. And I love that, and I think the best part of Fabula Ultima in general is just how unique you can make your character.
Truly. Oh god. Like, I had a fucking blast with playing my character in the aspect of ignoring the central dice mechanic instead of having a deck of cards. That was so fun.
Yeah, a little strong because you were just able to hit creatures just by having 2 pair or whatever.
True. However, I did just get lucky, and there is the chance that I could just have a hand where I'm like, this is worthless. And also,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was not doing it correctly, because a thing, or at least not optimally, because a thing I'm feeling might be the concept behind it is instead of doing what I'm doing, of just trying to output as many card effects, instead refreshing your hand to like force a combo or like force the effect you want is more, I think, the vibe, since you have that ability to like get rid of cards and draw more.
Yeah, I mean,
So
the
I
hard
think
part
that's probably what
is
I'm done.
it's turn-based,
Yeah,
and so you don't want to do that too much because you might just do nothing in the combat. Because the rounds, like I said in the video, we got through 5 combats in 5 hours. And combat wasn't the only thing we were doing in the live or the playtest we did, essentially. Like, we did a lot of combats, and we had like a social encounter. We did some exploration type stuff as well, and it was genuinely really good. It was very, very interesting, and the combats fly by really, really fast. The boss battle turned into a bit of a smash on the player side. I think it's just I wasn't using the villain mechanic, which is orientated towards making boss monsters do more damage, essentially, be more likely to hit. But overall, it's a really good game, and it's interesting because this idea of like the JTTERP or the TTJRPG isn't new, actually. One, this game isn't even that new technically, but as well, people have been wanting more anime in their tabletop as of late, which oftentimes means taking a lot of influences from Japanese games, and other people have kind of had the idea of JRPGs as well. And now, with Final Fantasy XIV releasing their own official one, it's a very interesting time, and I like this idea that a Square Enix, or at least the Final Fantasy 14 like developer, are part of the company, decided to make a TTRPG product. A pretty well off bit. Final Fantasy 14 has been very successful.
Immensely, which is like, because I had the thought when I first saw that, oh, Final Fantasy 14 TTRPG, I'm like, really? That's the one they went with, like, of all the others? And then you think about it, like, wait, no, I'm pretty sure that's probably one of their biggest money makers, Final Fantasy wise, so makes sense. That tracks. Because I would personally expect a Final Fantasy 7 tabletop game before anything else.
Well, it depends on like developing studios, and there's just different. There's Square Enix is like a lot of different parts.
Yeah.
So
it's just like, it's the one where you're like, that is the game that everyone knows. You think it'd be the first one, but I feel like Final Fantasy 14 is probably. Please, Discord work. I feel like Final Fantasy 14 would translate better to a tabletop game, to be honest. I think you can do some fun stuff with 7, but I think it's the difference, too, of setting your tabletop game in a world with a very pre-established story. I feel like is probably harder than an MMO world.
That's fair.
An MMO is different.
But the bigger point I was trying to make is a at some level corporate entity has decided to invest in TTRPGs.
That is so big.
Like, for Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, right? That makes sense. Hasbro is a game company. They make all kinds of games and toys. That is their thing, and so TTRPGs are just kind of like a natural extension of that, because like a bunch of what like toy companies are based on is more novelty than it is like investment. You know what I mean? You make a different version of Monopoly, like the 100th one, because people are gonna be like, oh, okay, that's fine, I guess. That's gonna be a fun game to play. I'll pick it up. It'll be fun. Monopoly is a fun game, you know. I played like the Pokemon Monopoly back in the day. It was actually legitimately pretty fun. But the thing is there is now a corporation that out of nowhere, who only has made video games, has invested in making a TTRPG. Now that this same company, I will admit, also makes a lot of other things Final Fantasy related, a lot of like plushies or a lot of like paraphernalia you can get based on the game and everything like that. And this might just be an extension of that, but it is somewhat hopeful for me to see more companies thinking a TTRPG is something to like invest in and to like develop a product for, because you never know when you get like a FromSoft like company who's just like, hey, I know we're doing this like side project thing, but can I actually just make it really, really good? And they're like, sure, go ham. and then we suddenly get like a really, really good TTRPG. Because I gotta say, in the game development world, there is no country better for like people who love their games than Japan. Of course, there's a lot that don't. There's a lot of Nintendo people who don't try that hard, but then again, there's also a lot of Nintendo people who do try really hard for their games. But like the reason why Final Fantasy XIV is as successful as it is today is because everyone on the team genuinely truly love the game and the experience, and they push to make it better and better. The same with From Software. They really like the IPs that they make, and they put their everything into them, and these people really care about what they produce. And having Final Fantasy XIV produce something like this, it could be really good. It could also just be a subsect of the company that is making something for people to buy that's Final Fantasy related. That's completely possible. This game uses like multiple D20s and multiple D6s. So I'm very curious how it's going to turn out.
Also, immediately, yeah, because very similar concern whenever you see like this property is getting a new tabletop game. Is like, is this just reskinned D&D 5e?
Yeah, which it's been a lot lately.
I've seen that because that's the Dark Souls system too. Is kind of when we were looking through that.
Well,
that
kind of. That's based on.
We had some D&D like vibes.
Well, that was more D&D 3.5.
Oh, fair enough.
Which is very different D&D than D&D nowadays.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it is also a fair point that while D&D 3.5 was nice, we would like something more modern, a little bit more innovated on, a little bit more fun. Because,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of people hang me for the idea that 3.5 is not a fun game. It's a fun game for sure, but it feels so not modern, especially compared to like Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
Because if I've never played 3.5, but if 3.5 is in any way like what Starfinder was, I can very strongly say I don't like 3.5.
Well, Starfinder was actually was a bit more advanced than even the 3.5 style was. So
damn, still couldn't hit, I guess. Not on me though. I'll say it proudly that I knowing what I know about like specifically that style, like that the Pathfinder 3.5 era of stuff, not a fan. There's a lot of like clunky shit that I don't like.
Yeah. And going back to like Fabula Ultima, I think Fabula Ultima is such a good game because it's got some very interesting aspects that I really like, and as a rules light style of game, it's not as intensive as other TTRPGs. It's still a bit crunchier than, say, a lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse system games, for instance. And it feels a little bit more caged in a way, where combat makes sense, right? There's not a situation where I have to, like, a player has to justify to me why this narrative thing does a mechanical thing. Everything in this game that works on a mechanical level, and it's not, like, in question, right? So, let's see here. I heard Japan has a very unique TTRPG scene, so that's going to be interesting. I'm curious. I've heard that there's actually been a bit of an uprising in TTRPG stuff in Japan, but it's something that's so insular in Japan that we don't hear a lot about it unless someone goes out and finds a product or finds a game and then talks about it. And like it's something that it's like the Wild West. You have to like go and discover it for yourself to see what's actually out there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious what games that would be then, because if they're building like their own tabletop community over there with different games that we're playing, I kind of want to try some. I want to see what cool games they got.
Yeah, I'm all there. There's TTRPGs is something that's on the rise everywhere. The sheer number of people from South America who say, "I love your content. It's so good," because in South America, there's a big uprising of people who are getting into TTRPGs now. You know, and I mean, in Europe, it's always been a thing. There's always been people in Europe who've loved TTRPGs and have made some very interesting ones. Heck, that's where Anima Beyond Fantasy really came from.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see places where like these things are becoming much bigger, much more hot topics. Hell, I said I was talking about Fabula Ultima, and someone joined our Discord today just for Fabula Ultima stuff. So there's obviously a desire in a lot of people, especially to see more different types of games. It's not all just Pathfinder, D&D, Pathfinder, D&D, you know. There's people out there... Go ahead.
Because he also specifically got people reaching out, asking about Fabula Ultima.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on top of all that, Lancer has been on the rise lately as well. A lot of people are really getting into Lancer. Gosh, there's so many people who just want more Lancer, and I'm so happy to give more content. I'm trying to move to a daily upload schedule, or near daily. I might take Sundays off, but like it's a lot. I'm gonna be trying to release some Lancer content, and we're gonna be doing Vampire soon. And I plan, when I get comfortable enough with the system, to release Vampire content as well.
Hell yeah. I'd love to hear these like games like this build. Whenever like a game I see pop up in your comment section enough, it's always that bit where it's like, thank God, I'm happy that there are people that are seeking games, or at least like trying to spread the word about a really cool tabletop game that they enjoy. Because God, we need more unique, fun ones rather than just D&D with different coats of paint.
Yeah, for real. And yeah, Silver, I've Savage Worlds is pretty. It's a big niche in the TTRPG space. That's all TTRPGs are, is big niches, honestly.
Yeah.
Besides D&D and maybe Pathfinder at this point, it's hard to say. Shadowrun, a lot more niche, not as big, but the Shadowrun people, nothing could stop them. They'll take over the government. That's how dedicated Shadowrun players are to the game. Like, you should play Savage Worlds Pathfinder. I've heard of it, you know. I've never been super big into the Savage Worlds style of game. Savage Worlds also came to Deadlands as well, and I prefer classic Deadlands rather than the Savage World Reloaded.
I do not know what those games are even like.
So
I've only heard the name.
Well, you're in the right channel, my good friend, because we talk about all kinds of tabletop here.
Yeah. And yeah, the only part of all of these statements that I disagree with is when you said that people just want more anime in their tabletop games, because I cannot relate with that at all. It's the part of this game where I'm like, I don't care about that, because it's the same with anime, where I'm like, don't care for the anime aesthetic. These rules though, these rules are great. I like anime abilities. I just don't care about the general like anime vibe.
That's gonna be a whole thing, isn't it? Like, what is the anime vibe?
I don't know. Just when I look at it, I'm like, that's an anime.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So you don't like Kengan Ashura, Baki, JoJo's?
Those are pretty cool.
But you don't like their aesthetic.
They do kind of cool things.
I
don't know. It's like, I know when I
You're
see
literally
it,
just saying it has anime. I'm not an anime guy.
Yeah, not really. I like shows that
that's
are
like
anime.
saying
I'm not an anime guy.
I like movies, but I'm not a movie guy. What does that even mean?
No, that'd be like I like westerns, but I'm not a western guy. It's a like separate thing. It's its
No,
own like absolutely.
because anime
French
is a
movies, but
whole
I'm not.
category.
Yeah, like I like some French movies, but I'm not a large fan of French cinema.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's the
that's
same
a
thing as that.
part of movies.
Yeah,
Anime are all the same.
it's a
There's
problem.
different anime.
Yeah, they're all
There's bad
isekai.
anime and
A lot
there's
of bad
good anime.
ones. Some good ones, yeah.
There's a lot of
Kaganashi
good
was pretty
anime.
cool. I've been rewatching it again on the lead up to season 3 that just drops today. By the
You're
way,
also watching One Piece, so
I
shut
am
up
watching
with
One
all
Piece.
this anime nonsense.
Yeah, I
It's
got
such a
exceptions to
dumb
it.
statement.
I got exceptions to it.
It's it you're it's just what people say to not be associated with certain kinds of individuals. That's it.
That's part. I mean, that's like I'd say 20% of it.
Because like anime is vast. There's so many different types of anime. I mean, uh, anime essentially just come from manga, right? And Junji Ito is in manga style, which is essentially anime style, just not animated, you know. And yet it's horrifying.
Oh
And
yeah,
there's all kinds of stuff. Anime is just a media source. It's just a style of a particular characters being drawn, and it covers a wide thing. So saying I hate anime is like saying I hate movies. It's the same thing. And they're both
fuck
nonsensical
movies.
statements.
I don't like movies.
You're a full... Yeah, never mind. I knew this was going to be a thing. I knew this was going to be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the bits of the core book. It's like, it's more of just the thing where I look at the art style and I'm like, yeah, those are in fact pictures. None of this is blowing me away. The part I do absolutely adore, because it's also just like the general aesthetic of the system is not fully my cup of tea. It's not what I go into and I'm like, fuck yeah, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Same with anima. There's some pieces in it where I really like, but overall,
I don't know. The
art
Monster
style
Book
is
has
not
such
mine.
good art.
There's parts where I'm like, oh shit, that's sick.
It's
However, the part I really like, and it's the part I'm like, oh, I would actually like this like a lot more if they made a special edition core book that just leaned into this. I really like the pixel icons for like inventory stuff, like all of the little pixel art bits. If they made a version of this that was all like SNES era like pixel art, oh my god, I'd fucking be there. Like I would be super more on board with the general art style and aesthetic of the system. That is like the part where I'm like, meh. And also the other part is MMO style settings or isekai style settings have never been my thing. Like it's another like I just don't care. I'm just like, whatever. I have other things I prefer. But I think that you can make a really fun game out of it. That'd be like my fun. I will happily run a like maybe 20 session campaign in this system. Hell yeah.
yeah.
And
Well,
then
to
like
be
take a
fair,
nice break.
Fabula Ultima isn't an isekai based game. It's not even an
Oh yeah.
MMO based game. It's a
It could be like a
JRPG
lot of
based
things.
game. You know.
Oh yeah, that's the part I do really enjoy because I think it's what you kind of feel on the surface just looking at it. Because when I look at this, my first takeaway is, oh, so it's like kind of an MMO style thing, and or then like going into it and reading about it, especially the part that I really like is the part where before character creation they're like, all right, first things first, set up a world. Here's a bunch of world concepts, and they're all like, oh, these are classic like JRPG storylines. Fuck yeah. Like I like the rebel group going against the large company or religious group. That's excuse me, every JRPG ever.
Yeah,
And
pretty
like
much.
you can customize it so much that I think you can make it kind of whatever your table will fuck with the most.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, I mean, Fabula Ultima, why I think it's such a good game is a lot based on just, it has good bones. It has good bones for a TTRPG that is something that you can build off of, but offers enough support that it doesn't just immediately all fall off, you know? You can make essentially creatures in the system because the numbers are all very easy to kind of work around with, and then you just gotta slap on a fun JRPG aesthetic onto it, and it belongs in the game, for sure. I like how everyone is now talking about their favorite JRPG campaign tropes. Let's go kill God.
That's literally, it has to end with you killing God in some way, which immensely based. I completely fuck with that, because you know what? That is the one key part that I always adore about JRPGs, and just the part that I do really like about a lot of Japanese media is how heavily they yoink from just heavy Christian imagery. A lot of times, not every time, but a good chunk of it is purely because they think the whole Christian imagery just looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect that as someone who also just enjoys really heavily religious imagery. So whenever I'm like, fuck yeah, for some reason Sephiroth turned into like an angelic being, yeah, let me beat his ass.
I mean, I think it's also really important to mention, there's a lot of Japan that is fully Christian.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Like,
I mean,
Christian.
I've seen in person the Jesus Christ's grave. So, like 100%, like yeah. But there are elements of Japanese media where it's like, oh yeah, Christian imagery. What? Is there any deeper meaning to this? No, you just like the aesthetic. Agree. I big agree. Handshake.
Axelver has made a very interesting observation that I want to chime in on here. I want to say American cartoons have done some isekais better than Japan.
Yeah.
Like way better. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some really good isekais in Japan. I mean, that's where the genre comes for. But like the concept of a child ending up in a different world,
that's a lot.
Is done quite a bit, and it's just the thing is like isekai is not just being born like in another world. It's being born. Yeah, see Alice in Wonderland for sure. That like the reason why it got big was the idea that you go to another world, but you're also super duper powerful there. You know.
Yeah,
and
it's like that power fantasy of it.
That thing, I mean, I guess does kind of translate, but it's not exactly the same. But it's just such an interesting idea of like American isekais are just sometimes just better because they're not copy pastes of the same. They're not Xeroxes of the same anime over and over and over again. They're usually a pretty unique idea, or at least a somewhat unique idea that's just based on very different kinds of things. And so,
I will say real quick, X0, it is a case-by-case basis for Christianity use. There is the gambit of criticizing religious parts of society, criticize the religion themselves, or leaning into those themes for specific story reasons, like when a lot of things lean on the specific Christ imagery and the idea of like the Messiah figure. And then there is just the ones where they're like, it looked cool when the big cross is there, and to that I agree.
I mean, the same thing is done in Western media.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, if you watch the old Daredevil movie, it is heavily Christian undertones because for some reason they made Daredevil a Jesus figure. So it happens on many different sides.
Yeah, I also like the idea Alice in Wonderland as an isekai. Not quite the same. I will say not quite the same, because an isekai is a very specific genre of a thing. But
like traveling to another world. Question for debate here. If it goes both ways, is technically the two Smurfs movies an isekai from the perspective of the Smurfs? They do transport to another world,
to be fair.
But they transport from another world, but they end up in real life New York City.
Right. So alternate dimension, alternate settings are not isekais technically.
Okay.
An isekai is you are taken to another world and you become powerful. That's essentially what the isekai genre is, more or less, is that you go to another world and the whole thing is that you either start off really strong or you start leveling up, you know, or you become eventually powerful. That's the core thing of what an isekai is.
Then technically, from the Smurfs' perspective, they do get stronger and can only beat Gargamel in real life New York City. So, and they are the like technically the main characters, is the, like they're our main focal point. So, I think you could make that argument that it is an isekai. Specifically when you're looking at it from their perspective. I do wish the Smurfs got hit by a bus and then wake up another world though. Those movies fucking stink. I had to watch them because of younger siblings or just younger family members that I was watching. Those movies are fucking dog shit.
So I'll make mention here. So Define says that, well, said that's not true. The definition of isekai, it translates to otherworld, and so, or another world, and it covers the genre of fiction that involves a character being put into an unfamiliar world and having to learn how to survive. That is what makes an isekai, but that's not like what is recognized as an isekai. Like there's a difference between this, like the definition of the world and everything, and like how it's put in practical use. Also, hi Hector, how you doing? Because what makes the isekai genre the genre is the power fantasy. That's why people look into it, you know. And otherwise, isekai has always been a thing. Like technically, Spirited Away is an isekai, right? But it's not involved when people talk about isekais for that reason.
It's the connotative meaning behind a word. There's the actual core definition to it, but it's not people catch. Because it's like also from me being like, damn, isekai go to other world, but whenever I think of isekai, all I think is the absolute worst anime I've ever seen in my fucking life. Where I mean, like, never again. Not watching.
It's just like
not watching it.
Colloquialism, right? Where a word has a meaning, but it means something very different to other people. Because when you talk about the current anime and isekais, it's referring to a very specific kind of anime. Again, many people, if you were to ask, is Spirited Away an isekai, it would give them pause. They would probably say technically yes, but it's not like the isekai that anime is, you know. It's like saying it, like this actually came up earlier. It's like saying any turn-based like game made in Japan is a JRPG, which is not technically true.
Yeah, it's I do think that like there's the technical definition for JRPG, but I tossed in the chat earlier. From just like breaking stuff down, it kind of just feels like the exact same tag as calling something a Souls-like or calling something a Metroidvania. It's very determined by the games that came before, because a lot of JRPGs are strictly from the core design concepts behind like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, like those older titles. And then they branch off and there's different things, but in the same way that Castlevania and Metroid really paved an idea for a very specific style of game.
Yeah, and they were by far not even the first platformer puzzle solving kind of games.
It's just the ones that like got the biggest notoriety and made the biggest headway that then inspired a lot of people. So it's just that specific idea, and it's also the same thing with like Dark Souls. Because, you know, a lot of games are considered Souls-like for better or for worse, or at least compared to the Souls series, when they probably just shouldn't be. They're action games, action RPGs, stuff like that. Because I feel like I've seen people try to say, yeah, like Dragon's Dogma, it's like a Souls-like, and it's like, I don't know. That doesn't feel like a good comparison, to be honest. I've played both of them. They feel different. They're both kind of hard, but they feel different.
And I will say as well, the isekai cheat power is a trope. True, it is a trope, and it's not required for an isekai. But to be recognized as an isekai, typically the character needs to be able to get stronger in some form or fashion. Typically in video gamey, you know.
The idea I always have when it comes to what is an isekai is character goes into a world that's not theirs, and then very specifically is the coolest dude on campus, gets all the girls, gets all the powers, and just kind of is OP in the new world where he was kind of a dumb loser in the previous one, or at least just underwhelming and boring. It specifically always feels like that idea of real life sucks. This is just peak escapism, the genre. Go into a world where everyone actually cares about you, thinks you're cool, and then the subversions of the genre I see are what if you went to another world but people thought you were lame?
Well, definitely, go ahead. Offer up what you would consider an isekai. And then state how it's different from Spirited Away. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Fabula Ultima is perfect for a... It's been a long ass time since I've seen Spirited Away. You don't need to know. All that Spirited Away is a little girl goes to like this kind of like an old like ruin, like this ancient town, and she enters in with her family and they enter into a different world.
Yeah, like the whole like spirit world, and that is a very good movie.
It's a very good movie.
Yeah. I think it's this is a thing also you encounter in like film criticism as well, is you have the thing where you're like, what genre do I put this in? And it's like it kind of has bits of this and it kind of has bits of that. Gosh dang it. And it's like you have the technical definitions of genres, but then when you like break it down, you're like, does that fit? Maybe kinda. This is the best title for it. Like the isekai tag is at its very broadest. Go to other worlds. But then at its like what it actually means when you say, you watch isekai, it has a different impact. As someone who has a very specific idea what isekai is, that my always interpretation is specifically escapist power fantasy.
Yeah, because another one technically could be Dragon Maid, right? Dragon Maid is technically an isekai, or a reverse isekai if you want to be pedantic. And that's just not what people are thinking of when it comes to the genre. Even Devil's a Part-Timer, which also, again, reverse isekai, I guess.
Yeah.
Has power... we just said it a bunch of times, and that's leaked out my ears.
Escapist power fantasy?
Power fantasy in it, yeah. It has power fantasy in it, you know. Which does make it a lot more isekai-y.
Yeah. It's still, like, it doesn't... When I think of, like, Devil's Part-Timers isekai, I still have the feeling of... Yeah, kinda. I understand that. It's the long issue of whenever you define things, these nice, neat little like boxes of categories. There are things that break out or parts where people are just like, I don't know. It's always the problem is you need to catalog things, you need to categorize everything to make it so like I like this general vibe. How do I find more of this general style? But the other problem is art is all very unique and then it always breaks away, or the part of those specific genres, different elements stick out to different people. Because if someone really fucking adored isekai as a genre itself and heard strictly my definition of it, I'm certain they would be annoyed by it. Though, no, Superman is technically not an isekai. It's more of the idea of the specific Moses story of a specific baby being sent to a different area to be raised. It's very much in that style. And then even then, that's also reminiscent of some Japanese stories of just a baby appears and then is raised by regular people.
Yeah, well, it also, otherworld in this case typically means like another dimension, not another planet.
It's just a different planet that exploded.
But you know what? Technically, in some, like with some framing, it could be like a
if you really break it down to its bare like broadest, you could. And to the same aspect of if you break down most pieces of media to its literal broadest, you can be like, this is the same genre as this, and then people are like, I mean, kinda, but like, if you're being really pedantic about it and not like taking in the nuance or whatever, which is a dialogue I get because if specifically you get a lot of like um technically if you really break it down in specific my field of film education and film criticism because good lord the actuallys you get when it comes to movies are so annoying. Really don't like it.
In Grimgar, while it technically lacks the power fantasy element, the characters still get stronger, right? Like, the whole idea of isekai and why it's appealing to so many people is they go to a world and they're nothing. They're just a businessman, a school kid, whatever, and they go to this world and then they can put on themselves, you know, the onus to work and improve on things and become way more powerful than they could have in their prior world. So even in Grimgar, where it's a lot grittier, it's a lot more grimdark, and the characters aren't broken, they were still stronger than when they first arrived. And what Myriad's been saying is like getting stronger can be other things as well. Yeah, even in a setting where it's like they go to another world and they like there's this big one that's been going on like and I became like a farmer or I got like a shop or whatever, you know. I opened a business, I became a merchant, you know. All those kind of ones that aren't combat related. The thing is that they still went to another world and got more out of that world than they had before. The whole fantasy of isekai is you go to another world because the world you're in isn't quite working for you, and you flourish in another world. And that's what makes isekai.
Man, now it's like if you want to do a true genre subversion of isekai, just have a character that is actually just like the fucking lamest ever, who keeps like almost gotcha pulling on new worlds to travel to, hoping that this one people will actually like him.
That would be fun. That'd be fun. Would it technically be an isekai though? I don't think. If they keep realm hopping, then it becomes
it's a multiverse story technically.
Yeah.
But it's more of that, but I think specifically framing like the idea of just because your real life is lame doesn't mean that the new life's going to be lamer. Like specifically I think the idea of a character study of a guy who's like it's this world and all the people in it that are the problem, where then it's like the character arc of no, your personality just sucks and no one wants to be around you. That could be a really fun framing of a story, deconstructing those elements of an isekai plot that I would enjoy personally as someone who just I don't care because I don't feel like I ever put myself in the shoes of the characters I watch. I just like the character because they're funny or cool, or I like watching them do the cool thing. So I've been able to attach because I've also never been the idea of like, oh, I wish I could escape this world and go to somewhere cooler. Because every world I enjoy is tangibly worse to live in. As stated of I'm a 40k fan, and I actually have a concept for a video I'm going to start working on because it was asked by a coworker of mine where I'm going to make a video of top 5 best places to live in Warhammer 40k. And I gotta say, it's gonna be a hard fucking list of just where can you go to, and like you're planning a trip.
What
where
actually
is, like,
makes
the
the
nicest
list?
place? I'll let you know. Here's a fun little bit for the few people here. One of the options is there only because technically you won't die and nothing bad will happen to you. Because instead of living on it, you are put in a funny robots museum and temporarily locked, so you just aren't aware of anything that's going on. Because technically you won't get murdered horribly. You're just going to be a cool thing for a robot to look at.
I mean, I don't know, I haven't heard a lot about Terra, but Terra doesn't seem like the worst.
I don't know what that is.
In Warhammer? Terra?
Oh,
Earth?
No, Terra sucks. Oh god, it's one of the worst. Terra's
it?
Horrifically awful. Yeah, because it is the biggest hive world. It is stupidly overpopulated. As well, it's so fucking rampant with horrible shit that every like district of Terra has like 5 Inquisitors active. There's a giant Ordo that is specifically housed on Terra to make sure shit doesn't get through, and then it still consistently gets through. Every like there's a really dope book series that is specifically set in that, like with the Ordo on Terra dealing with Terra, and every situation of how the regular person lives you are essentially just cattle. You are walking from location to location. You go to work, you work for like 14 hours, and then you mindlessly walk back to your cube and lay down. That is your life as a Terran.
That's
And then
crazy.
also,
I haven't heard anything of Terra, so that's very fascinating.
yeah, it's actually a really cool series because specifically it breaks down what the average Imperial citizen lives, like what their life is, what their beliefs are, and just how it works. Which is why I really fucking adore the Volta Terra series. It's super interesting. But yeah, it sucks. The only one I'd say is probably worse Hiveworld wise is Necromunda, because at least on Terra, you're not gonna get shot by a random ganger in their massive gang wars that happen every 5 minutes. That's the only upside. You just might get murdered by gene stealers or a chaos cultist or any weird plot because they keep coming to Terra because they want to hit the throne world.
It's fair. Well, now I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think this whole conversation really just boils down to is like, in the end, when you're talking about ambiguous topics that are related to like a feeling, it's hard to say. Funny enough, everything keeps coming back to is just like, what is anime? What is it about anime you don't like? It's
Yeah.
that same thing of like definitions you can't have a iron bulwark of a definition for anything, especially genre wise. The only thing you can do is place things in like in little boundaries that they sometimes like float out of and back into, and you're just trying to get the feel of it so people can understand what it is that you're trying to watch, you know.
It's like how certain just words and definitions work is you need to hit the category that the most people, the average person would nod their head to. You say something and like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, yeah, it fits. And then there's the people who are like, I don't know. And as long as the overarching average number of people or the majority of people agree on it, it works. It's close enough. It worked for the conversation.
And it gets especially messy the higher you go,
Yeah.
because higher authorities will claim things that like most people don't. But it's just like, how do you argue with them? They're like some person who made the genre, you know. So, you know, it's always rough. It's always a thing. And more or less how this all got started way at the beginning of this conversation is that for Fabula Ultima, it feels weird just like cutting, but for Fabula Ultima, it's based on a RPG setting. JRPG, any RPG really. You can take it how you want. JRPG is just the aesthetic of the art in the book, and if that's what you're into, you're gonna get a lot of those good vibes because it's got really great pixel art in there. There's great chibi art that kind of goes with it. There's also really good set pieces like the one behind me that is very JRPG, you know. If you watched the video I had earlier, I show off some of the pieces from the book that are very, very good. And the setting is however you want to do it. We did MMO because I liked playing on the aspect of we understand it's a game and we can lean into that.
It made it really easy for like a one-shot kind of deal because we're all very heavy narrative players. Like we build characters that have a lot going on, but then it's like we always have the. I feel like I at least have that struggle of one shot of, oh god, what do I do? How do I make an interesting character on this short of a time frame? But hitting it from the perspective of us in our Discord picking up a game and playing it together is immediate. Like, okay, I can wrap my head around this a lot better for like a better flow of like the game. And I think it's a great framing for like a short campaign or like a one shot is pretend you're playing an MMO.
Yeah, I just think the idea is fun. I legitimately like the idea because then you can have the game elements and then you can have the narrative elements be outside of the game if you wanted to. You can have a depth to the actual roleplay. Roleplay as the guy who doesn't roleplay. Exactly. I love that, kind of flipping it on its head. And because there's no setting, there's no anything actually written down, you can kind of do whatever. Now, in my video, I said there's a part of it that I don't like. I love the world generation and everything like that, but the part I don't like is you have to do it. If you're going to play the game, you're going to have to generate something for yourself. Rather than if there was like, there's so many times playing Anima, I looked at the big world book they had, nice thick world book, and they gave like small blurbs on each little town in the area, and that was perfect. I could run with that, and I had an idea, and I could read like the region, what it was like, or whatever. It was a lot easier than having the actual town like all statted out for me, but it was at least something. You know what I mean? This game is like, you can make the whole world. Let's roll on several tables to see what kind of setting it is, what's the level of technology, what's the name of the Holy Kingdom you're going to have to overthrow. Let's do all of that. And I love the tables, and I love what it adds to the game. But I love that as someone who's really good at just improving. So when I'm taking it more in a sense of like what a general person might go through, I feel not coming with at least like a starter world or something is a little bit was a little bit like rough in some ways.
Yeah.
And
I think at the very least they're selling a supplemental thing that gives you like a pre-gen thing like that.
Do they? I didn't read.
It's like a narrative book that they drop for like running.
Yeah, I think it just adds more stuff you can make for your world, though.
I hope at least it's what I thought it was, because that's the vibe I got on like Drive-Thru RPG.
Well, I was reading it and I didn't get the same vibe.
So, I might be wrong then.
Need games.
Because yeah, it was the
Atlas High Fantasy.
I'm talking about Press Start. That book.
Oh, does the Press Start come with a pre-made world?
Press Start is Fabula Ultima's ready-to-play introductory scenario, a complete tutorial that will plunge you into a tale of bravery and memorable characters. All you need is the courage to fight for what you hold most dear. Also comes with pre-gen characters, but it seems like this is the... Oh, wait, it's free. Oh,
it is
okay,
free.
Wait. Cool. My only criticism was like, man, probably would be better to put that with the PDF, like, or with the core book, like, instead of just having it a separate thing to buy. No. Yeah, I mean, you can go with this. It'd probably be the method a lot of people starting out would do if they're getting new with the system. But I feel like it should be more prominent that there's like, yeah, you can make your own custom thing with all these fun tables, which I also adore. I really like cool tables like that, especially ones that impact the actual like world. That's very cool. But specifically, a lot of players do want the beginner box feel with like the Minds of Phandelver equivalent.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, and you said it pretty much as that, is it'll give you something to work off of, but it's not providing you a whole world setting to, you know, branch off of for future games or to move forward with.
Yeah. I can see it's like, because I mean that's the thing I know with Minds of Phandelver even is a lot of people do after they finish Phandelver, if they stick with it, they kind of use that as a springboard for their own story, which works, and like that could be the same method here, and at least it's something. But I do think that if some brand new player is opening up the book, and then they're saying like, here's the type of games you can run, and then it's like, oh fuck, this isn't just one setting. Oh god. What do I do? And immediately hit with that like choice paralysis. I can see that being very disconcerting.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, I think when you play TTRPGs for a while, you forget how hard it is for new people sometimes getting into it, because
it's rough.
Like, people are just like, just make it up. You don't have to do anything, but people are like, they don't realize how free they are in a sense. There's a lot of people you get into like any TTRPG, and they're like, I don't know what to do, you know, and you're just like, just do anything, we'll guide you, and they're like, because they don't know what is okay and what is not okay, even though mostly anything is okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't know yet that they can do almost anything. So there's and there's all kinds of people. There's people who could play TTRPGs for a very, very long time and still be really, really bad at improving. You know, it's something that I, as someone who, in a way, I'm a bit of a TTRPG reviewer now. I mean, I've been doing it for quite a few number of systems. It is something where I try to look from the perspective of someone who's never done it before to see what's intuitive, what's not, what makes sense and what jumps out at me and which is just hard, and what to go from there. Like, I honestly believe Fabula Ultima is a really good game, but I don't think it's actually, like, even though it's rules light, I don't think it is the easiest game to start with, even though there's so much to do, because one, you have to generate pretty much all the world setting, even monster stats yourself, which is a little scary if you're a new GM. And there is some chunkiness to like how the classes are set up, and there are obviously ways to like more power game your characters that I feel it's not necessarily as self-explanatory. I would say genuinely D&D 5e is actually easier because there's a setting, there's infinite material to look up on D&D setting. If you're getting new, just watch some videos, all that kinds of stuff. And what your characters are capable of, what they can do, is pretty laid out for you in the beginning. You're not really choosing much besides what class you're starting at and what race you're starting as. In this game,
on a character creation basis, it's really low intensity. It's that what race you pick and what class you pick and what background you are. Ooh, that's kind of it. You're not like, all right, what kingdom are you from? All right, that's been generated into the world.
Yeah, So there's Fabula Ultima, from my personal experience, is the best rules light game, if you can call it that. There's some people I think have a very good argument against it being rules light, considering one of the qualities of rules light is it provides a lot more narrative flow, and so it's designed to have rules as like an afterthought. Where this game, it gives you just a very core, like, if you're gonna do a conversation, you're gonna use 2 stats, probably insight, probably willpower, for anything non-combat related, maybe even in combat. And in combat, you're gonna be using a lot of might and dex.
Yeah.
It's very easy, very simple to get ahead of, but unlike, let's say, Blades in the Dark, for instance, I think Blades in the Dark is more designed to like create narrative moments than it is to give you just something to make rules for non-combat situations.
Yeah, completely. I think it's the thing where I fully feel that one tweet I replied to you about is this feels like the type of rules light system that appeals to you.
Yeah.
Where there's enough core rules to actually run it without a lot of like figure it out DM hand wave.
Yeah.
And there's like actual stuff there, but there's not so much rules where it bogs it down where you have like, all right, let's flip through the book. All right, where the index go in here. Like, there's not that as much. If anything, this is like rules medium.
I would say that. This is pretty rules light, honestly, because a lot of the thing, right, is you pick some stuff for like your character level ups and your character's capabilities or whatever, but it's not a very deep system, actually, honestly. And for what you said, Devings, no, this isn't rules light as in what people pretend D&D 5e is. D&D 5e is not a rules light system. I don't know how many times I have to say this. It's not a rules light system. It's got a lot of rules in it, actually.
Just a lot of people don't use them.
But, it's just like, even rules light games have rules in them, right?
Yeah.
like if I was to use probably one of the core like rules light systems, let's talk about like Powered by the Apocalypse, right? Let's use Monster of the Week because that's the one we're doing a lot of. Monster of the Week, you have a character archetype or class, so that's the same. You get abilities that can somewhat change how your rules work. That's the same. And you have weapons that do numerical damage. That's the same. Pretty simple. It's all pretty much the same. What makes those different than like an actual rules heavy game is, okay, so I want to go and like make an item, for instance. Oh, well, we have some rules for that, you know. I want to go. It's like they offer a bunch of rules for other things outside of that, and also D&D is predicated on a grid-based combat system where you have characters that have moves or whatever. In neither Monster of the Week or Fabula Ultima is there a grid. Movement isn't a factor. On your turn, you decide an action, whether it's making an attack, whether it's guarding yourself, whether it's doing some kind of weird magic. Those are all things that happen in both systems as well. The biggest difference is in Fabula Ultima, you can get like gear that makes you do dark damage, right? And Monster of the Week, well, even in Monster of the Week, you can have weapons that do different tags as well. So yeah, it's very hard to say how much more rules light makes Fabula Ultima a little bit crunchier than like Monster of the Week, for instance, but it is crunchier. It's very difficult to explain other than, I guess, in Fabula Ultima, you're leveling 2 classes minimum, up to 3 classes at the same time that give you different abilities. And in Monster of the Week, you're lucky to level up every other session, and you just add one extra little tag onto your character for sometimes narrative purposes, sometimes not.
Yeah. So honestly, because like this is another fucking what
We're talking
really
genres
is
again,
an
I know.
isekai? Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, because my
right back.
response to all this is still the idea of like, I picture Blades of the Dark, which is the design philosophy of you're telling a story, rules are there to keep the story going, but you're not meant to like, you're not playing the rules. You got a story. Then I think of Fabula Ultima, and I'm like, doesn't feel the same. It feels a little different. But I mean, it's just different games at the end of the day. Now I am wondering, what would it be considered a rules medium? Like, because then we have to figure out, like, it's a big scale. What is the easiest tabletop game? What is the most rules light game on the market, and what is the most rules crunch on the market? And then we have to line them all up and figure out what the median is. That's the real question. What YouTuber will make a video on that? Someone who knows more tabletop games than I do, because God, I struggle when I think of the idea. I mean, it also depends. Like, are we going to like complication of rules or the amount of rules? Because if your game is like you got one key rule, but it's got some chunk to it, it's like, is that more rules light than a game with like a couple, like a really basic dice system and character system, but it's like brain dead easy? And also, I don't know what Wanderhome plays like, so I would have to take your word for it.
So I'm gonna come in with a statement here. There's nothing rules medium. You either are a rules based game or a rules light game. It's like,
no, there are shades of gray.
You can't have, but like you can't have. I was gonna say Bud Light and Bud Light Zero, I guess, or whatever. There's like a no alcohol version or whatever.
No, non-alcoholic, just beer and then regular
Coke,
beer.
Coke and Coke Zero. You know, it's the same thing of like a rules medium is just the lower end of how crunchy a game system is. Like, I would say D&D 5e is rules medium in this case, because when you compare it to, say, Anima or Shadowrun,
yeah, actually,
those games are so crunchy and so much deeper.
There we go, folks. We have our answer from the tabletop expert. D&D 5e is a rules medium system.
Sure.
I just think it's like a nice little like spectrum where there is the extremes on both sides, and then every game is lined up by some weird arbitrary method, and then everything that lands in the middle, you're just like, yep, that's I guess that's rules medium. Just rules light and rules crunch kind of dictate that there is a middle ground somewhere. There is one game that is a perfect medium.
Yeah, it's called normal.
Yeah,
it's a normal
exactly.
TTRPG.
Exactly, but it's gotta fit. Which side does it lean more to? That's the good question here.
Now we're getting to the layers.
The layers of it. I think this would be a really. I actually genuinely think this could be a very fun video idea that in the end is largely this tag is fucking stupid. It means nothing. Like, what are you talking about? But is a really cool way to expose a lot of really interesting tabletop games to people who wouldn't have heard about it.
That's fair.
Like comparing
I think that's fair.
rules light and rules heavy games, and like comparing different styles of games. So then someone's like, oh shit, that game sounded really cool. Let me look up that one. It's a stealth recommendation video built into a really dumb subject of, can we find the perfect medium between these two kind of play styles of TTRPGs? Then the answer is no. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fun video idea, honestly.
If you don't
would require a lot of research, though.
Yeah, if you don't do it, I'll do it.
That's fair.
Because I could see myself making a video on that and having a good time.
But like, I would say like, if Pathfinder is just crunchier than D&D, then Fabula Ultima is crunchier than Monster of the Week.
Yeah,
that's essentially the range we're talking here. Is it's on the crunchier end of rules light, but it's still relatively rules light. There's not mechanics for a lot of things, because I think what defines rules light versus not rules light is the amount of systems that have rules. And in this game, technically only combat has rules, and in combat it's mostly just like 2-hit and damage types. There's no mobility rules, there's no rules for certain kinds of actions. It's very bland. And if you're to say, well, would you recommend this to someone who likes Monster of the Week, for instance, I would say, I don't know. It depends on if you want something that's a little crunchier than Monster of the Week or not, because a lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse games are games that have narrative player choices that you can choose that changes how narratively your character functions. Like,
yeah,
in Monster of the Week, my character has an ability that I can pull anything out of my bag that I want, which is kind of crunchy, right? Like I can have any item as long as I make a certain check. But I also have a skill that's just like, I have a library at home that has occult books, and so one time I can add a little bit. I can add a +1 forward on my occult checks because I studied at home. You know, I prepped myself by looking at my book.
My choices that I've made, I think, are a more crunchy side, because my two other rulebook options are the self-heal on a successful cool check. It's not as bad as it looked, and then the one I got last session of the Divine's ability Smite, where now I have fist weapons that are always the weakness of the monster. So it is...
That's really strong.
Yes, and it is strong. It does mean I'm immediate aggro, and the fight we had last session, whew, fucking boy. I kicked some ass, but if I got hit, you know, I'd be fucked. But yeah, it's it leans into that, because I think the fun I have of Monster of the Week compared to some other combat systems, I mean, I think there's some, I do agree with some critiques of the system itself, that there is some issues of having characters where it's like, I don't got any armor or aspect for combat. If I take any major combat situations, I'm just getting hit and punished for doing something in combat.
Yeah,
I think it's fair. the part that always attaches to me whenever we're playing it is it feels more like I am playing out a movie scene than I am a game combat, which is what immediately attracts me to it because there's so much reactivity that's going on and like people chipping in for cool combos and stuff, and it's like this feels great. Because last session was a great time. Your character wouldn't have known because you got locked in the cellar, let out,
Nice.
and then when the fight started, you got pushed back down the stairs and the door got locked again.
Nice.
Yeah. And then last second, you did try to help us in like phase 2 of the boss fight, but you were digging through your bag, and I think you had a Polaroid camera in there and accidentally hit the photo button with the lens facing you, so you kind of got momentarily blinded. As Vale's attempt of like, he's not here, he can't just give you his free item ability. That's not gonna work. If you wanted his cool backpack, he'd have to be here.
I wish I was there. I was at a wedding.
Yeah, weddings. So.
I will say weddings are not the funnest thing you can go
they're
to.
a little boring. I've been to some. They're
I'll take
Very
weddings over
happy.
funerals, though.
true. That's immensely true.
But
Yeah, it's like I think that's a fair thing with Monster of the Week. I think that Fabula Ultima has more, I guess, like good combat gameplay. It's just gonna be in the end how the DM flavors everything, because a lot of it too, in my opinion, of Monster of the Week's specific like strengths when it comes to its combat system, what I like, can a lot be hit with Vale's DM style.
Yeah, true.
So it always transcends to there's the game feel, and is it actually how the game's written out, or is it how your version of the game is being played because your DM likes this specific vibe?
Yeah, anima.
Yes,
that's all I can say. No one would love anima if it wasn't for me.
Yeah, legitimately. Yeah, there's a reason why you get a hefty shout out at the end of that video, because it is you. Your version of anima is the part I like, because it was that revelation I had while writing the script, where it's like, oh, this is the reason I really like anima. Okay, because I just broke it down of, I really, really like things that I feel like I can feel the authors gave a shit and enjoyed themselves and like just kind of made it because they like a thing and they're giving it to the world. That is the vibe I enjoy. So whenever I hit that vibe, I really fuck with it, which is why I like Pathfinder so much, because it's very evident that everyone there cares. I see them on Twitter all the time.
True. They
like
all
that
really
element.
do care.
Yeah, and so it's all those elements that like build together, and I do feel that with Fabula Ultima, which is why I fuck with that so much, because this is a game that could only be created by a bunch of people who truly adore the JRPG like style.
True. I earlier I was thinking I'm glad I'm not a bigger content creator, because if I was a bigger content creator, all the stuff I said about isekais would get like clipped, and I would just get reamed by the anime community about everything I said.
Twitter weebs or something.
I would not hear the end of anything I said. But now, I'm like, because you know what we could do if I was a bigger content creator right now? I could do a marathon stream where I try to get that $5,000 to make a character in the anime game.
Oh, I want that tier so bad, though. I want it. I want to have one of my anime characters, mainly Sebastian, appear, because I still think that idea of, imagine the one-up of a situation where you're like talking with someone, it's like, yeah, I also got some character art of like my characters, like talking about the games you're doing, talking about all that, the fun like characters you're playing, like, typical nerd shit. And they're like, yeah, here's some cool commission art. Yeah, nice. Here's a let's play. Just pay attention. That guy, that's mine. I played him.
My character was in the video game.
That's the biggest like dick swinging move of like, my character's canon in the world we played in. It's like, oh my god, that'd be so cool.
Anima does this all the time though in all their Kickstarters. So eventually, one day, this channel will be big enough where we could do like a marathon to get a character in a game.
Yeah, if I like had a bigger audience, I would be doing some stream content to specifically make that fun. Of like, all right, gamers, I'm gonna get my dumb tabletop character in this anime video game. Let's play the other anime games or something. But
That would be fun. Do an anime stream for the anime character. That would be kind of fun. Not
and then
lie.
it's just playing the anime game, and you're just like the whole time, man. I hope the next game is actually good. I say that as someone who firmly puts those games as like, it's like a 6 out of 10. It's like, I see what they're going for. I think the combo loops are interesting enough. It's just the game itself is like a very underwhelming DMC clone. That's all it is.
Actually, now's a really good point. We're getting towards like the last part of the stream. If anyone has questions about Fabula Ultima, feel free to ask them, and I'll answer to the best of my ability from what I know. Which most of what I know is just in the core book, a little bit while I looked into some of the other books. But I can answer at least core system stuff pretty easy, I think, at this point. And as well, if anyone is interested in Fabula Ultima, next Tuesday, we're going to be running a session 0 for our one-shot where we're going to be making characters. So if you want to see characters being made, it's going to be next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then the week after, we're going to do a one-shot where we play those characters. We're also going to be doing level 20 characters rather than level 5. As there's a little bit more stuff I want to mess around with, and they don't usually happen until level 20. So...
yeah, specifically, there's some heroic skills that I think would be fun to play with, and I can't wait. I already know exactly what I'm gonna be playing. I'm honestly just switching out the Animist with the Entropist. That's my only idea, because I think leaning back on like some different spells, though also I think leaning onto a class that is less MP heavy might be a good idea, but I'd be spreading my stats really thin. I don't know. I'm gonna have to read through it more.
If you pick up... there's some other classes that can give you more MP.
Specifically Entropist has MP Steel, where I can use it whenever I deal damage, when yoink some MP back. So okay, no, that was the reason I picked that. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah, Myriad, that's fair. I do love when TTRPGs in general like give praise to the community. Though a lot of the D&D ones I think are just like friends of creators and their stuff, but
yeah, the most you get is, I think, the that one art of the tavern in fucking Waterdeep, whichever one, the Yawning Portal, where there was a bunch of like prominent members of the D&D community that were like drawn in there and hidden.
That's true.
That's like the most I really see a lot of it.
If I ever make my own TTRPG, which is something that like is a lifelong thing that I keep going to and falling off of, because I'm not built for game design. Like, I'm really good at making the rules, but writing them down is a problem. And also not doing them impromptu, because that's just like, my brain is just only made for improv. It's not made for like sitting down and making big projects.
Yeah.
But if I ever do, I want to make a thing of like people who become big in the community to give like homages to them as the game is like produced, just to like make the community a part of the game as much, because I think that's a big part of tabletop. TTRPGs in general are just a community thing. I think the community parts are really strong, and I feel like they need to be played more into, personally. Starfinder has things where player PCs are trying to get elected as the leader of the society. That's kind of fun.
That's really dope. And also, it is a thing where smaller companies can do a lot more of it, sadly, where the bigger a game gets, the harder it is to like leave more community shit, because now the community's way bigger. What parts of the community you pick, and other members might be like, ugh, that guy, this guy is more prominent. And it's like, to that element, it's more difficult. But I always like when there's an attempt made, or at least, even at the very least, I do enjoy art in some books. Like, I think the specifically the Yawning Portal style of community involvement is really fun, where it's like you have that bit of being able to point, like, oh my god, okay, there's that, and like being recognized in that way is cool. And also just that's a really dope idea for Starfinder Society. That's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
It's you know, and I mean, there's always the fear, right, of like how do you do it in a way that doesn't break immersion, right? Because like
Yeah.
what
True.
if a big member of the community is just playing the biggest goofball of a character that you can imagine, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like someone who just breaks the setting by being in it that bad. And there's always that kind of like element to it. But then again, the players also need to understand that the game needs to keep some level of narrative cohesion. So, you know, if they want to be included, they should make characters who can be included in that way. So I think I just think that there's more that can be done for sure. But there's a lot of things that it can be really messy because it's like it's like when that city like had this reveal of this boat. It was like a big thing for the city, and they made a poll to see what the boat's name was, and it was Bodie McBoatface, which was hilarious.
It's great. There are some other like worse outcomes of certain online polls, of course. Some of those are really funny. I also think there's a very other good reason that to be like hesitant or very careful is if you're not careful doing very like, yeah, this community character is canon now, and then a month later such and such community member outed as being an actual neo-Nazi.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, ooh, that didn't age great. It's like those moments where it's immediately like, fuck, okay. We can't walk this back because it was in a big-ass book published.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. It's like to that level where it makes it difficult.
Mm-hmm. So, like, I understand.
Also the fact that some will be like 5 years later, I never got any royalties for this cool fan thing that I got recognition for.
Typically,
seeking it out.
Typically, when they get added in, they have to sign a waiver for signing the character away.
Some will still fight it later as like the hope of I can maybe make some money off this.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a bigger shit show. Like it comes up. It is a thing that I assume it's like some people have been like, oh, let's do this fun thing, and then legal has to be like, I've sent this email so many times of the reasons why we have to be careful. Please listen.
So like I understand, but
yeah,
you know, at the same time, there can be ways of doing it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Actually, you know what? Not to keep praising Wizard of the Coast because I'm very like reluctant to do this. I do honestly think one of the coolest methods they do this is the fact that Adventure League results do impact how the storyline progresses.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really dope way to progress your tabletop game storyline and have it feel like the players took part. Because then it's like, oh my god, yeah, we made that decision. Oh, our decision was canon. It's in this book now. That hits. That hits really well. I think it's a dope way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would love, like, if I make a game, like I said, I'd love to have a way for players to submit their results for their own games for certain, like, in-game events. And it just kind of becomes a popularity poll at that point of what, like, the next thing is, which I think is fine. But it's cooler when it's put under the framing of the players fought to defeat this demon creature creating havoc. And so now this city is usable, or this city is destroyed, you know, in the setting moving forward.
I always love that. It's always so cool.
The only hard part about that are people who artificially inflate numbers by creating a bunch of accounts to add their submissions in.
Yeah.
So
it's
again, people just ruin everything, don't they?
They do. I'm happy it didn't come up with the Warhammer situation where they did that with the what'll happen to this planet? Will the Tyranids or the Ultramarines win? And then everyone was summarily surprised that the Ultramarines lost. Win.
Yeah.
At least in that aspect, the verification was you got a one-time QR code in the starter box for 10th edition. which is like you can submit one result per box, which is a fair reason to do it because that's a lot of effort to artificially inflate the numbers. And then you have all those bits of, oh shit, they were honest about it. Oh god, they were honest.
Yeah.
Also, the Tyranids are fucking really strong in 10th edition, so I'm not surprised that they won.
Fair. Yeah, there's you could do that. You could do that for like APs or something, you know.
Yeah, it's like a code. It's like a one-time use QR code or like number code, where it's just like use this to enter your results, and then cannot be used again. It's a good method of quick verification.
The hard part for books is people can just open the book and scan the code in the store.
Yeah, true. If it's not like cling wrapped or something.
So, you know, again, why do people just gotta ruin things? It's I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited for maybe the advent of more JTTRPGs, TTJRPGs, because not all not all TTRPGs are gonna be JRPGs technically, or maybe they will. That's such genres. Getting into genres again. I'm excited for what the Japanese community brings to the TTRPG field. How about we call it that? And you know, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the Final Fantasy 14 game is actually kind of good. Like, I would take a game as good as like Fabula Ultima, right? Like, Fabula Ultima is a fun game, don't get me wrong. I like Fabula Ultima. It rates a really strong like 8 out of 10 for me as far as Rules Light is concerned.
Yeah.
It's well in the category of I'll play a campaign of this.
Yeah, I think we're both in the similar situation of like we'd play a campaign and then be like, all right, that was pretty good, and then do other things for a while, and then until we're like, let's go back to Fabula Ultima.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really fun game. It's definitely not on my immediate top list of like favorite TTRPGs. Because that's a hard thing to take over. And it's like Pathfinder, Lancer, VTM, Anima. It's like those specific games of like, those are I will fucking at the moment I have free time and we're doing a campaign of this, I'm fucking there, dog.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely. It's not going to be Rules Light by any means. I was just saying, as far as Rules Lights are concerned, I like Fabula Ultima. But if I was to put Fabula Ultima on like the scale of all TTRPGs, it kind of drops down to like a 7 for me because I'm just not a light rules or light kind of guy. But like in the genre of Rules Light games, it's an 8 out of 10.
I think it's definitely one of the stronger Rules Light games. And I'm saying this as a person who really enjoys Rules Light. I really like the style of game they give. So it's up there. It's definitely near the top of my favorite Rules Light games I've played. I still think Monster of the Week is my favorite, but also, yeah, I do hope that I would be really disappointed if Final Fantasy 14 tabletop was not a crunchy system, because like it's an MMO. It's got to have a lot of moving parts to it. That's what MMOs are. They kind of have like a lot of bits playing into it, a lot of abilities you're using in a very specific order.
One of the interesting things I'm kind of interested in is in Final Fantasy 14, your character can swap classes. And so you could be a max level like healer or tank if you want to. So I wonder if that's going to play into the TTRPG at all, where you can swap to a role where you're not a hybrid. You just completely shift over to that role. But I think even that can be kind of fun in a TTRPG.
Even then, like, you could... I feel like that'd be at least a good variant rule, because technically what's stopping you from having that in more games of, like, hey, DM, can we have, like, an extra class, like, kind of deal? Or can we have multiple character sheets for our character that we can switch around with for different party comps? I feel like it's not the hardest or craziest thing ever. And specifically in a game like Final Fantasy 14, that makes a lot of sense to do.
Yeah, well, the hard part is, like, how it translates to a TTRPG. Because the TTRPG is just different, you know? It's like, you don't go into an instance in a TTRPG. Or you can, I guess, if you're role-playing the MMO, essentially. But the whole point of a TTRPG is that you're telling like a story set in that setting. You know, like us doing MMO with Fabula Ultima was just for the sake of like, this is a fun idea. This is something that we can kind of play up the gimmicks of the game part of it. But
Yeah.
Fabula Ultima is not designed necessarily with that in mind. It's designed that you're playing characters in a world and a setting like any other that just has JRPG kind of flavoring. And even then, that's not even baked into how the game actually runs. You know, you could have an anima story technically using Fabula Ultima rules.
True.
It wouldn't be the same, but it would be, you could do it. There's nothing that stops mechanically the thing from happening. Yeah, I did look really hard at that image to see what it had. I'm very curious to see what actually comes out of it. That is very interesting. I didn't see that part of it. The stack marker. Huh. So there...
What's a stack marker?
Okay, so the stack marker is really fun because it's kind of a meme. So a stack marker means the team needs to essentially group up to you essentially divide damage by number of players in the stack, essentially.
Okay.
So it's like 100 damage coming down. If 5 players stack up, each player takes 20 damage. Right. It's a meme because new players... Because there's stack markers and there's also target markers. And target markers are... you're going to be hit by an effect. It's typically an AoE effect, so you want to run away from everyone else. So new players will get a stack marker and run away from the party while everyone's trying to chase them to save their life. It's really funny.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because the only traditional MMO I've played is World of Warcraft, and it does not work like that in that game.
No.
So I'm like picturing it. I'm like, that makes sense. That's what you do. And wow, it's like, no, that's funny. Okay.
I just thought that's funny because stack markers are such a meme. But yeah, so we'll see. I'm genuinely curious. Fabula Ultima was a good game. As I said, we're gonna be playing it a little bit in the near future, and then maybe down the line we might do like an actual like 15 sessioner. I can see us doing that. I think I can
see us having a fun time in whatever like campaign style you decide to run with it. I think it'd be a phenomenal time, especially with, all right, Cam, let's write your perfect your perfect JRPG.
Right. Yeah. That'd be interesting. What would be my style of a JRPG?
Yeah.
For sure. We're going to be doing some more stuff on it. As this game comes out, I'll probably make a video on it because why not? Daggerheart will also be probably coming out sometime soonish. I don't remember.
I want to try that system at some point.
Yeah, I haven't heard exactly if there's a release date for Daggerheart yet. I know it's pretty far along, so I'm expecting it probably come out next year, honestly.
Yeah, I could see it like at least quarter 1, quarter 2 next year.
I wouldn't say quarter 1. It'd be probably quarter 2 max.
Yeah, fair.
Daggerheart RPG Darrington Press. Let's see here. Yeah, nothing official at the moment that's been announced. At least not that I can find on their website. So, Daggerheart looks like late 2024 at earliest. I probably could agree with that sentiment. Yeah. So when that comes out, we're gonna be looking at it. And as well, I know like the end of the video is not a great time to ask y'all questions, but something I'm curious of, especially since we have a lot of people coming from Pathfinder over, is how interested is everyone in just variety tabletop? honestly, because I'm gonna continue doing Pathfinder content, of course, but I feel like the channel's been actually getting some pretty good success going variety in a lot of ways. The Lancer's been surprisingly holding the channel up for quite a while now. For the last 2 months now, my top content has been predominantly Lancer content. It's still majority Lancer content, but we also had some really big news come out for Pathfinder recently. Those videos did really, really well. They still didn't do better. Actually, none of those, like the Animus or the Exemplar, didn't do better than some of the Lancer videos did last month, which is pretty crazy, honestly. So, I'm curious to see if people just want more variety content. I'm more than happy to make variety content. I know people in those games really want more people to make variety content, because man, it's like throwing a steak to a pack of wolves. The Lancer community is just like, oh, thank you, our Lord and Savior, for making Lancer content. We've been so hungry for so long.
Honestly,
Literally, someone today joined because we were talking about Fabula Ultima. So has not been doing anything Pathfinder for the last month, and it's been their worst month. For myself, I'm good with variety, but I also think I'm pretty unusual. I mean, I don't know. I think when you get into a certain level of TTRPGs, you just want variety, you know? I mean, variety is a spice of life, after all. It's just whether that's what the casual community is looking for.
Honestly, I think a solid method that would make sense. The idea of putting myself in the place where I sit down and enjoy tabletop content. I think the idea of having one core system that is repeatedly visited, like your Pathfinder, but periodically, like pretty regularly, releasing content that is like a fun overview of a cool new system you found is interesting, because it's the idea again of like, I found this thing, I think it's really cool, let me tell you why I think that. And then you have a really like engaging, informative piece that largely serves the focus of check out this fun thing, instead of like, here's a review for those who are waiting to buy it, or here's a guide to how to start playing it. The idea of this is purely a video to tell you this thing exists and what is in it.
Yeah.
That is like, that's perfect peak like casual content. Having the idea of the educational aspect of it is purely this thing exists and thumbs up. Which that's at least the content I enjoy.
I think what I'm going to do, my schedule moving forward is I'm going to release 3 Pathfinder videos a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then on the 2 days of the week that I stream, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to release other content, whether it's Lancer, because Lancer is going to be another one that's going to have at least a video a week, or whether it's anything else that comes up, like the Fabula Ultima video that released today. And then Saturday is my TikTok short day, where I make a TikTok for short, right? And short for Pathfinder, typically. And I think that's the general schedule I'm going to go for, because the thing that I'm finding is what keeps the channel, like, whenever I release Pathfinder content, it tends to do well, but it's always very, like, particular on what people are looking up at the time. But when it comes to, like, Lancer content, even though those videos don't do really well in the first 24 hours, they grow very consistently faster than Pathfinder content, because there's just not a lot of people making content on that game, and so people are hungry for anything. And even though the community is not as big, a lot more of them are hungry for that content. So I feel like if I release 3 Pathfinder videos are going to do better, but then 2 videos are going to appeal to very specific search queries on like niche things, it'll keep the channel's like view range pretty consistently high, and people who are looking for content on a new game are going to want to subscribe for that channel that's making it. Like, I've gotten so many subscribers from Lancer in the last 2 months because I started releasing Lancer content. So I'm new to the channel, so I'm not sure my opinion counts as much. I came mostly because of Pathfinder 2 content, but I haven't watched most of your videos yet. I'm all for variety as well. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate any kind of thing you can put in is good. I'm not stopping Pathfinder content. In no way would I stop doing Pathfinder content. It's still my favorite game. Don't get me wrong. And there's still way so much to talk about. It's just I want to make sure that I'm providing for this channel a strong enough base moving forward is the biggest thing, right? Because Pathfinder is popular, but even channels like No Nat Ones or the Rules Lawyers, their sub counts have been somewhat stagnating for channels their size. Like, if it was any other genre, No Nats would probably be very close to 100k right now. But right now, I think he's still currently floating over 60k, if even.
I haven't checked in on his shit in such a long time.
No, barely over 50k. Oof. He got 50k literally, in like March or something, or February, I think. It was after the OGL business. He got like a huge boom of like 20k subs.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and the Rules Lawyer, who has been doing better. His growth has actually been surpassing No Nats. Yeah, he hit like 20k and he's now at 31.5k, which is a 10k growth in like 6 months, which is huge for a channel his size. But even then, I feel like it's somewhat stagnant for being, you know, if people are looking up Pathfinder at all, they're running into these two channels' videos. And if the biggest channel is 52k and the second channel isn't even close to 50k yet, you know, it just doesn't feel like it has that big of a ceiling. So I figured I could get to that 30k and still have other venues for other growth. You know what I mean? To do like, oh, here's some Lancer content. Here's some other content for other people as well. So I am trying to move to a 5 video a week schedule. Also, I'll be curious. Leave any comments or critiques on any of the new videos. I'm trying a new style that's a little less edit heavy, but I feel works just as good. But I'll be curious. Yeah, I'm aware of No Nat's general health. He's been still producing a pretty fair amount of videos recently, though. Like, he still produces close to like 2 videos a week, something like that. Let's see here. Video 3 days ago, 8 days ago, so 5-day difference, 5-day difference. Yeah, about twice a week on average. He did have a very slow period, to be fair. I also think that No Nats is just struggling with being kind of pigeonholed into one thing on the internet when it's obvious that he wants to do so much more. And what I'm saying is not a critique of him by any means. What I was saying more of, if the biggest Pathfinder channel isn't hitting 100k, you know, that there's just not that many people looking up Pathfinder content. So it's something that I feel like I still want to appease the base of the Pathfinder content creators, but I also want to add a little extra, you know. Why not work a little bit more in the week? I don't think the Pathfinder communities will be justifiably angry if I provide them the same 3 videos a week they've been getting already, plus more content. So, you know. But yeah, like I said, the new style, I'll take any critiques. I want to make sure that what I'm producing is good for everyone, and we'll see what the future holds. I think next year Tabletop's going to get a lot of fun stuff. I think there's going to be some pretty big things happening next year for Tabletop, and I'm super excited for it. But that's going to be it for me. Anything you want to leave us off with, Glue Boy?
I got I got a dog barking in the background, so that's, you know, we'll litter this if you can hear. Uh, there's a lot. One sec. This might help slightly. Okay. The only thing I'll say, nice and quick, I am way back on the grind for 40k videos. So if you actually like Warhammer 40k stuff, come check out my channel. Look up Glue Boy. I got some videos in the work. Actually, during this stream, while we are talking about like just content stuff, got the brain fucking rolling for the first time in a while. I have a new series or format I want to experiment with that I'm actually kind of excited about. So we'll see. But yeah, if you like Warhammer stuff, I just dropped a video on the Iron Hands, and I have some fun, casual content coming out in the next like couple weeks. So give that a peek.
All right, I'm excited. But that's gonna be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.